Now, this may seem like a strange comparison to make, especially given how long these two cameras have been out, but here's the thing. In the many years since these cameras were new, they've dropped dramatically in price, to the point where the Canon 5D Mark II and T3i might just be the absolute best deals on used Canon DSLRs that exists. Now, I'm sure some people are thinking, well, he's just saying that because those are two of the cameras he happens to own. But to that I say, why do you think I bought them? Do you think I bought them because they were the fourth best deals? Do you think I bought them because they were, decent-ish values? No. Prior to buying each of these cameras, I spent months researching which exact camera was going to be the best deal for me, and these were the results. And honestly, even in the years since I've personally bought these cameras, they've dropped even more in price, making them even more relevant to a whole new set of potential buyers. Now, I should point out that this is not going to be a comparison of which of the two cameras is better, because the 5D Mark II is better. I don't think that should come as a surprise to anyone. I don't think anyone's really disputing that. So today what we're going to be comparing is which one is the better deal. Because here's the thing, at about $500 to $600, the 5D Mark II may be a fantastic deal, giving you tons of camera for your money. But at only $200 to $300, the T3i might be an even better deal. So let's start off by looking at the build quality of these two cameras. Now obviously the 5D Mark II is going to be better, but how much better? Now let's first talk about materials. Obviously the 5D Mark II is going to feel a lot stronger, a lot sturdier, a lot more metallic, definitely much more higher end build. Not to say there's anything wrong with the way the T3i is built, it still feels perfectly fine to use, but I should point out that the 5D Mark II is definitely going to feel a lot better. Now the thing is though, I think the main advantage of the 5D Mark II as a physical object is not necessarily what it's built from, but rather the extra features it has. Now the 5D Mark II has one dial on top for changing the shutter speed and a dial on back next to the screen where you would change the aperture. Now the thing is, on the T3i you actually only have the one dial, so if you want to change the aperture, which is something you'll be doing all the time, you actually have to press the aperture value button and then start turning the dial to change the aperture, which is not necessarily a bad thing on the part of the T3i, but the thing is, going from the 5D Mark II back to the T3i, which is missing this feature, you kind of feel like, you're going back to one of those old iBooks that only had one mouse button, so you had to do shift click to do right click. Once you've tried a camera that has both dials, it can be kind of disconcerting to go back. So it's a really nice feature to have those two dials. It could definitely make, the workflow of your photography, a little bit that much more efficient. Now, another thing I also really like regarding the physical camera of the 5D Mark II is going to be the screen on top. Now, this lets you see, your ISO, shutter speed, and all that stuff. And it's a really nice feature, and you get to really rely on it. So same deal, when you go back and use the T3i or any sort of other camera that doesn't have it, you kind of feel blind, You definitely feel like you're missing something. Again, not to the detriment of the T3i. If those are the sort of cameras you're used to, or if you've never used a professional camera that has these things, the T3i will be perfectly fine. And even today, when I go back and use the T3i, within a couple of minutes, I definitely get used to it. But I should say, those two features are really, really big conveniences and good advantages of the 5D Mark II. So regarding build quality, no surprise, I'd prefer the 5D Mark II. Now, how about movie mode? How does the videography capabilities differ between these two cameras? Now, first of all, I should say very, very similar. They're way, way, way more similar than they are different, but there are a couple of things that distinguish them. Now, for one thing, the user interfaces are going to be basically the same. Functionality, the way you operate video modes can be very, very similar. You could seamlessly switch back and forth between the two. But believe it or not, the T3i actually has two distinct advantages. First of all, the T3i is going to have a couple more options regarding frame rate and resolution, so that's definitely nice, but the real big deal that's going to be the bigger selling point for a lot of people regarding the T3i's video mode is actually going to be the screen. On the T3i, you do have a fully articulating screen. You could turn it around, adjust it, basically to your heart's desire. Now, for me personally, I don't think this is the biggest thing in the world. When I go to my 5D Mark II, which doesn't have this feature, I don't really miss it, but I'd be lying if I didn't say it's worth pointing out, because the thing is, some people absolutely swear by these screens. I know a lot of people have told me that if their camera doesn't have the fully articulating screen, they will not use it as a video camera. So it's worth pointing out that if you're one of those people that relies on this feature, you're only going to get it in the T3i. So again, these two cameras regarding video, way more similar than they are different, although to be honest, the T3i is actually going to have a couple of little advantages here and there. So for this round, I'll give it to the T3i. Now, let's talk about images. Which one is going to get you better looking images? And obviously, the 5D Mark II, because it has a full frame sensor. Now, honestly, you really can't understand how big of an upgrade having a full frame sensor is until you've switched from APS-C to full frame. I mean, so much about your images get a real improvement. Obviously, first of all, you're going to get the actual focal length, the actual fields of view that are intended from your lenses, but way more importantly than that, you're going to be getting much better sharpness, additionally, much better color depth, better dynamic range. Really, every aspect of image quality and visual performance gets a significant boost by going full frame. Now, don't get me wrong, there's nothing necessarily wrong with the image quality you'll be getting from the T3i. In fact, it's surprisingly good even compared to much newer DSLRs. But the thing is, when it comes to APS-C versus full frame, the full frame cameras really have a strong advantage. So when it comes to images, image quality, if that's going to be your priority, 5D Mark II hands down. Now, something else I want to bring up is the aspect of compatibility. And the thing is, the Canon T3i is actually going to be compatible with many more lenses. Now, here's the thing. Because it's an APS-C camera, because it's a crop sensor, you get access to all of Canon's EFS lenses, not just the EF, which is going to be all you're going to have access to on the 5D Mark II. Now, the thing is, there's nothing wrong with Canon's EF line, even if you're on APS-C or full frame, you could easily make a collection of just EF lenses. It's a really good lineup for any budget level, but the thing is, by having access to the EFS lenses, you get some access to some really, really great budget lenses and some surprisingly expensive lenses too. Just to name a few of my favorites, you have the 24mm pancake lens, great little prime lens, some really cool features like a really close minimum focus distance. You have access to their 55 through 250 telephoto zooms, which are probably like the best bang for your buck telephoto zooms in the history of SLR cameras. You get lots of good stuff like some of their super zooms, like the 18 through 135 is surprisingly competent for a super zoom. You get lots of macro lenses. I can go on, but I think you get the point that by getting the T3i, you get access to a lot of really good lenses, many of which are very affordable that you simply cannot use if you have a full frame camera. So we have 2 rounds going to the 5D Mark II and 2 rounds going to the T3i. So with all that in mind, which one is the better deal? So here's how I see it. If you're going to be using the camera for still photography primarily, I actually think the 5D Mark II is going to be a better deal. Now that may seem strange because it's about $200 to $300 more expensive, but here's the thing. By getting the full frame sensor, you're automatically upgrading the performance of all the lenses you have or ever will have. Here's how I see it. By spending, $200 or whatever, which is the price of like one cheap lens, you're automatically upgrading the performance of every lens you'll ever attach to the camera. So how I see it, for not that much money, you're putting an investment into the lenses and making them all a lot better when it comes to image quality, not to mention getting the actual fields of view you're intended to. So for still photography, I think it's an investment you really should make, making the 5D Mark II the better deal. But here's the thing. If you're getting these cameras for video mode, I would actually say the T3i is a better deal. Because here's the thing, yeah, images are going to look better on the 5D Mark II, but the video files are going to be so much lower resolution, so much less detailed, that those differences become very, very diminished to the point where you can't really justify spending the extra money on the 5D Mark II. And then you have to also keep in mind that the T3i did have a number of extra features regarding video, not to mention the fact that it's going to be smaller, more portable, easier to carry around. So how I see it, if you're going to get this primarily or entirely for videography, I could honestly see you saving the money and just sticking with the T3i.